That sounds mean you're back on the air with the restaurant brokers, Eric and Robin Gagnon. Today we had 3 experts in restaurant design join us for the show, and now we're going to give you the unbridled truth and inside scoop on the same topic. Robin, when it comes down to design, the first reality I consider are clients who come to us because they have overspent on their design before they even got off the ground.
I know, and it was a really great discussion for Steve to tell us some ways that you can do a refresh or a design on a restaurant without spending a fortune, because so many times we end up with clients who have only been in business 7, 8, 9 months because they got so swept up in the building and design process. They built their own version of a Taj Mahal, this incredible thing. They lost sight of their budget. They lost sight of their original idea. They did not keep up with their timeline, and they burned up all their capital. And I mean, I just can't even tell you the number of stories on this. Do you remember one in particular, our Buckhead client?
I do, Robin. And also that reminds me that Joe today, Carbonaro from Research and Restaurant Design Magazine, he said prioritize. I mean, have a list of priorities so you don't get into that scenario. But yeah, we had a very, very good client here that came from out of state to Atlanta market. He wanted to be in the best area, which the Buckhead area was a very conveyed area. And we find him a space which way bigger. It was like 2.5 times bigger than what he wanted. But he says, that's the only space available. I will take it. So he took this space and started with just a very modest remodel for the size of the space. That turned out that $2.5 million, that's million, folks, later, he finally opened the restaurant. With his original budget was $300,000.
And the crazy thing was, I will never forget this, because he had given us his ideas about what he wanted. We put him together with some design and some construction firms. But he wanted this sort of brand name architect, and someone got his ear and said, oh, you need to have your restaurant designed by XYZ name. Not that anyone ever walks into a restaurant and says, oh, this is a such and such design. And so that's how his original budget went to 10 times that number. You know, $2.5 million in, it took him almost a year to complete it. He burned through all of his capital, additional capital and investors that he could get. And literally, he lasted 6 months. And then that beautifully designed space, everything he invested in it, just became a benefit for the landlord. And the next tenant swooped in there and barely had to spend a penny to take over the operations.
Yeah, and the reality, I mean, these great architect, designer that are known nationally are great people. They can do miracles. They do some unbelievable things. You have to give them a budget if they're willing to work for that budget. If not, then you should shy away from it, because at the end of the day, the reality is it is not a piece of art. This is not going to be increasing in value. It is an expense. And just like think about buying a car. When you take the car off the lot, it loses a lot of value overnight. Well, this is the same thing in the restaurant build-out.
And, you know, you can go bigger, but it's harder to make a big restaurant look full. So stay small, get the bones of the business right, and stay disciplined on your timeline. It doesn't matter, and this is truly important, no matter who you work with, check their references. Find out if they deliver on schedule, because, you know, I think that the architect from Louisiana mentioned on the show someone who, you know, they have to wait for months for the right light fixture to come in or the correct booths. I mean, make sure whoever you are paying, you've checked their references and seen if they actually bring it in on schedule, because a delay of just a few months, you're paying rent and you have no income coming in. That can be a huge difference in when you get to market.
You know, and another thing that really got me today that we hear, for those of you listeners that listen to us on frequent basis, hear that. Steve from No Mouse Productions said today, you got to remove yourself from the restaurant and look at it with a customer-looking eye. How many times have we heard that from Alton Brunt, from various people that came to our show? You have to remove yourself from the day-to-day and be very harsh on yourself. This is the same thing here. You start storing, toilet paper under the sinks without a cabinet. You start storing kids' chairs in the corner, but suddenly there's 10 of them, and then 5 of them are broken, and they just stack them up in the corner. The mud bucket stays in the corner. You kind of don't see it. It's in the entryway of the kitchen. That's how it starts. And 5-10 years down the road, your restaurant is cluttered. And so you have to look at that. So it's not only spending money, which we heard today's stories where it's very affordable. You can do a remodel on $5,000 to $10,000 on a store that was 5,000 to 8,000 square feet. But it could be just as simple as declutter, cleaning. A lot of time. How many times, Robin, you walk into a restaurant that's been very successful for years, and you're like, ooh, it's kind of smell funny in here a little bit.
Yeah. Cleaning is a thing that doesn't cost anything and can easily declutter and clean. It sounds like you're getting your house ready to go on the market, right? But it's that age-old story. If it's clean, if it's fresh. And the number one thing I have to tell everyone, my pet peeve as a restaurant broker, I cannot tell you how many clients I send to look at a restaurant, and the first thing they do is look up at the ceiling tiles. So if you had a leak 36 months ago and you have yet to replace that ceiling tile, it will cost you money in the sale, because my buyer comes back and goes, oh, the roof must be leaking because there's a stain on the ceiling tile. So look up, look down, look in the corners, and clean and remove those things that obviously show flaws in the business.
Yeah, little things. Oftentimes, like Robin, I walk into a restaurant, talk to a seller, things are going well or not well, and they want to sell. And I look at their front windows, say, hey, would you mind having the windows clean the floor? And he's like, what's wrong with my windows? And you look at it, there's a film there for the last 3 pollen season. I mean, you have to be very, very removed from the business and clean it every day, because the more you spend time in there, and I know those of you who own the restaurant spend a lot of time in your restaurant, it's really hard to start seeing out. But either seek people to ask some of your customers, ask some people that are, ask us, give us a call, give us an email. We'll be coming. I'll be glad to give you guys an opinion and say, hey, this is what you should be doing. Guys like Steve today. Steve would love to come and talk to you guys about creating something for your restaurant.
Yeah, I would say at least every 5 years, and you should be doing a refresh every 12 to 18 months, just looking around. If in a refresh can be something of a design nature. It can be the introduction of lighting. It can be just a quick paint job for a couple of highlighting walls. It doesn't have to be every wall or just around the hostess station. Some things that just really don't cost a lot of money that say to your customer, listen, I'm still active. I'm engaged in this business. I'm looking at it. And I'm being as thoughtful about the atmosphere that I'm bringing you into as I am about the food and the menu. You would not go 4 years in this business and never change your menu, because if you did, you're out of business. So don't do the same thing with your physical property. Make an update.
Absolutely. And this is a very interesting time, because the trends right now in design you see is a lot of repurposing. A lot of older things become new again, or spray painting, making it look rustic. Rob and I recently were in Louisiana, went to Pesh Restaurant downtown in New Orleans. And it looks like it's been there for probably 50 years. I mean, it looks like an old wood docks or something like that type looking. Very comfortable. People felt comfortable. But it's a brand new restaurant. It's a year old. So you can do a lot of older things. So if you have chairs right now that looks all beat up and chipped up, people are not expecting brand new chairs that cost $300-$400. You may be able to sand them a little bit, re-lacquer them, and make that chair look even older in a professional way. That's going to make your restaurant meal feel better. So there's great opportunity right now in the design and the trends that we're in for you to become current and saving a lot of money.
I love that advice. And in fact, I think we have some listings on the market that actually could use that exact kind of approach to make them feel fresh and new, do a re-grand opening on them. And the type of restaurants that I want to describe to you are what we call asset sales. And what an asset sale means, it may not be making money in its current state, but it needs to be refreshed. It needs a new owner. It may need a new menu. But the sales are there, the kitchen, all the infrastructure's in place. They're open and operating, and they have a customer line. So you can come in, take them over for next to nothing. Find these listings and many more on our website at WeSellRestaurants.com. You've been listening to Eric and Robin Gagnon. We're the Restaurant Brokers, and we are attempting to satisfy your appetite for acquisition today.